Hello fellow booktubers, my name is Lauren and you're watching Dreams Books Courage, and today I'm going to be doing one of my favorite yearly videos, this of course being my top books of 2016. And this reading year was definitely a lot different from the past two reading years. I'll leave a playlist down below of my favorites of 2014 and 2015, and in the past 2 years I've read more than 70 books each year, and this year I only managed to read 32 books. So I definitely cut down on the amount that I was able to read, which is fine because this was my first full year of being at college both in the spring and fall semester, although it does make me a little bit sad because I do really love reading. And I just wish I would have been able to get to a few more books. And I was going to talk about 10 books in this video, but now I'm only going to be talking about 8 because honestly whenever I looked through the books that I read this year, I realized that it was only just an okay year in my reading. Not basing that on the amount of novels that I read, but basing it on the quality of those novels. It's not that they were bad, it was just that they weren't like my favorites of all time. And I just realized that I had 2 really great reading years, so it's okay if I just had an average one this year. So today I'm going to be talking about 2 honorable mentions and 6 of my top books of 2016, so let's go ahead and get into those. So first in my honorable mentions category, I have Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And this novel is very complex, so it's very hard to describe, but the 2 main characters are Heathcliff and Catherine, and for a series of reasons they just never end up together. And that's not really a spoiler because it's kind of talked about at the beginning of the novel. This is probably just one of those novels that is better to go into because otherwise I'm probably just going to confuse you. But the reason why it's one of my honorable mentions is because although it wasn't like my favorite one to read, I did learn a lot by reading this novel and it just has stuck with me past the class that I read this novel in. I really enjoyed the writing style of this novel and I'm really looking forward to reading more by Emily Bronte if she has anything else that she has written, because I know this is the only novel that she ever wrote. But the way that the characters' lives just wove together and the complexity of the stories really had me hooked from the very beginning. And it was one of those novels that surprised me that I enjoyed it so much because at the beginning I wasn't 100% sure if I would like it. But I did end up enjoying it and I'm definitely looking forward to a reread of this in the future. And my second honorable mention is Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, which takes place in the Star Wars universe, but it is not centered around any of the characters within the Star Wars movies. It's about these 2 best friends growing up together and joining the Empire, but then one kind of breaks away and joins the rebellion, and just how their relationship matures over the years and how they still manage to be close although they are on opposite sides that completely hate each other. I think this is an honorable mention instead of a favorite because it just took me so long to read, and so it just kind of seemed kind of drawn out to me. But also I felt like some parts of the novel were just kind of too long because it really does go through the entirety of these characters' lives up until a point. But this is one of my honorable mentions because it really just showed me more of the complexity of the Star Wars universe. And it definitely makes me want to read more books within the Star Wars canon. I really haven't read that many sci-fi novels, but I did really enjoy this one, so hopefully I'll be picking more up in the future. And honestly, I felt so invested in these characters' lives and like what was happening and stuff, so this book really did have me hooked on these characters and just the complexity of the universe and all these planets and these creatures and everything else that happened. So I felt like I had to feature it on this list even though it's just an honorable mention. So now we're actually getting into my top books of 2016, starting with the 6th place spot. And in the 6th place spot is the Summer Trilogy by Jenny Han, starting with The Summer I Turned Pretty. And the second book is It's Not Summer Without You. And the final book of the trilogy is We'll Always Have Summer. And I'm just going to include the entire trilogy as one since I read all of it in 2016. But my favorite book of the trilogy was definitely We'll Always Have Summer. This trilogy is about a girl who goes by the nickname of Belly, and every summer her family vacations with another family at this summer house, and the other family actually has 2 boys who are named Conrad and Jeremiah, and they've grown up together. But whenever Belly becomes 16, the dynamic between the 3 kind of changes, and so as you can probably tell, it's basically a love triangle, and it's done very well because it is by Jenny Han, and I feel like she does a great job at love triangles. Honestly, throughout the trilogy, I did not know who Belly would end up with. And this is one of those series that's just such an addicting read, but the 3rd book really sold it for me and brought it all together, and I really enjoyed that. Throughout the series you can really see Jenny Han growing as a writer, but the final book was just so great and the series definitely gave me just all of the feels. I love the way that Jenny Han writes her characters and it really makes you feel like you're there on the beach with them. She's just such a great writer, so I felt like I had to include this on the list, and it was definitely one of my top reads of 2016. And in the 5th place spot I have Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. And and I feel like if I didn't read this book so early in the year, it'd probably have a spot closer to #1, but I read it during the spring semester for one of my college classes, so I just don't remember as much of it or my feelings towards it as I would have at the beginning of the year. But this is a great read. This is my first novel that I've read by Toni Morrison, and she's just such an amazing writer. She's absolutely incredible. This is the story of an African American family, and although it centers around one character, it's really about generations of this family and what they have gone through, and just everything about it is just absolutely amazing. You really become attached to this family and what they have to go through, and this is just such an important read. I don't want to give too much away of the plot because I feel like the way this is written, it just unravels so beautifully, but I just enjoyed this novel so much because it really taught me a lot about writing and characters and character development, and it's just so hard to read anything else after reading this because it is just so well written and just so beautifully done. I really did enjoy this novel, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading all of Toni Morrison's novels in the future. This is just such a powerful and impactful read. I definitely feel like everyone should read this, especially since racism is just such a big problem right now and has been for such a long time. I just feel like if everyone read this book, maybe they would just understand a little bit better and feel more sympathy for other races, because I feel like people just have such a hard problem with doing that, and I don't know why, but this is just the perfect read, especially after 2016, and I feel like it can just give you a bit more hope in the world. This is just such a crazy read, but it's definitely well worth it. And in the 4th place spot is The Day of the Locust by Nathaniel West, and this is a classic that I definitely feel like is not talked about enough. This novel takes place around the time in which Hollywood is really becoming its own thing and starting to make more and more movies, but this doesn't really show like the glamorous side of Hollywood. It shows more of the violent side of Hollywood, and overall I just feel like Nathaniel West is quite a violent author within the way that he writes, but he also just has such a beautiful writing style. You really just cannot stop reading. The main character is working in Hollywood and he's meeting all of these crazy people who live absolutely crazy lives, and he's just kind of getting enveloped in the Hollywood scene, and just a lot of violent and crazy things happen throughout this novel, but I feel like it's well worth the read. As I said before, the writing style is amazing in this. I love it so much. It reminds me of F. Scott Fitzgerald's writing, and it's just a very weird and like crazy and violent novel that's unlike any other I've ever read. It's just such a hard novel to talk about because it's just so crazy and different from anything else, although it was written so long ago, so I feel like no one's really talking about this, but they definitely should be, and it's quite a quick read. I feel like it's only like 150 pages. The story just really takes you to another world, and like the main character, you really get enveloped into Hollywood and everything that it was at this point in time. If you like the 1920s or Hollywood or F. Scott Fitzgerald's writing, I would highly recommend this. It's just such a great read that I'm definitely looking forward to rereading in the future. And the novel in the 3rd place spot might come as a surprise to some of you, and that is Queen of Shadows, which is the 4th novel in the Throne of Glass series. And one of the reasons why it's not #1 is because I read it like in January of last year. So I read this book basically a complete year ago, and so much has happened since then, so I just don't remember everything about it. I do remember that I loved it, and I'm definitely going to reread this one this year. This is quite a chunk of a book, so it definitely took quite a while to read, but it was definitely worth it. I love everything that Sarah J. Maas writes. Obviously, I can't tell you about this novel since it's the 4th in a series and I would be spoiling everything, but in the 1st novel, which is Throne of Glass, the main character is an assassin and she is forced to try to become the king's assassin, but there's so much else that happens in this world. It is absolutely crazy where it has ended up in the 4th novel. I would highly recommend that you read this series. It is one of my favorite series of all time. The writing style is great. I love the characters and just this world and everything that Sarah J. Maas has created, and I highly recommend that you pick this series up. This novel was definitely hard for me to read at some parts just because some of my ships just don't end up happening in this, but then other ships begin, so my emotions are just all over the place whenever I read these novels, especially this one. This was just such a great novel. I love where it went, and I'm just really looking forward to picking up Empire of Storms as well, because this universe is amazing and I highly recommend everyone to pick up the series. And the novel in the 2nd place spot is No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy, and I wasn't sure if I was going to choose this novel or Blood Meridian, but I ended up choosing this one just because I like the writing style a bit more in this one because it's definitely a lot different in Blood Meridian. This tells the story of a man who accidentally comes upon a lot of men who have been murdered, and he finds a lot of money, and so he just takes the money from the scene, and so he has a lot of people coming after him for that money, both the police and the people who were originally supposed to have that money. It's basically just a crazy chase that you see from all of the different perspectives. I don't even know exactly what genre this would be classified as. Maybe like a crime novel? I don't know exactly. It's really unlike anything else I've read, and I love the writing style. Cormac McCarthy's writing style might be my #1 favorite writing style. I really just want to pick up all of his novels because he is just one of the best writers I've ever read. And the way that the story is written and the way that it unveils is incredible. And every chapter I just wanted to keep on reading because it was so good. Even though I was reading this for a class, it really didn't feel like it because I just wanted to read it on my own. And I had read Blood Meridian before this, like within the past 2 weeks. But I still wanted to pick up another McCarthy novel, which is pretty incredible because I usually want to take some time in between reading an author's novels. But I just feel like Cormac McCarthy's novels are just so addicting, whether they be like mystery or western novels, no matter what they are. So I highly enjoyed this novel, and I'm really looking forward to picking up more by McCarthy. And if you want to pick up Cormac McCarthy's novels, I would definitely suggest starting with No Country for Old Men. And my favorite novel of 2016 has to be Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. And this, of course, is about Mr. Penumbra's bookstore, and it's very much so about the people that work there and the customers that they have. And overall, this is a mystery novel, so I really don't want to get into any specifics. Just go and pick up this novel. It's definitely a novel for book lovers. It was just such a fun read that I definitely want to go ahead and pick up again. The writing style was great, and so are the characters and the places that they go. Although I felt like it was kind of slow at the beginning, it definitely picks up very quickly and takes you to places that you definitely do not expect to go. This novel is just so amazing. I felt like I was falling in love with it while reading it. If you love books as much as I do, you'll probably enjoy this one, and it's definitely one of my favorite books of all time now. Thank you all so much for watching this video and joining me along my reading journey of 2016. I hope that 2017 is a better reading year for me, but even if it isn't, I'm just happy with what I've been able to read. I would love to know down below what your favorite book of 2016 was. Now I'm gonna go get back to reading.